So, first impressions of the bike. For context, my previous bike, kind of similar to this, a Triumph Bonneville 865, 2009 SE, a bit older, I guess, air-cooled instead of liquid-cooled, smaller engine obviously. It's the older 360-degree crank instead of the 270, a little bit different, it's definitely different sounding. It was a lot, raspier and with an exhaust on it as well. So sitting at 5,500 RPM on highway speeds with only 5 gears wasn't great for going runs and things like that. It was great to rev through, but yeah, the engine note can grate on you a little bit after a while. Difficult to kind of just cruise around on it without ear-piercing noise to go with it. This bike, however, as you can hear, even when you get on it a little bit, it's nice and low and rumbly. Lovely sound. Again, I'm not saying the old engine sounded bad, but it's definitely more livable, I'll say that. And especially with the stock exhaust on it. It's a nice volume, but it's not overbearing, I would say. We'll probably eventually put some slip-ons on it or something, just to bring out the sound a little bit, but I think the volume's quite nice though, as it is. Also, just the general look of the stock exhaust isn't great, I would say. It'd be nice to get an aftermarket one on there, just for aesthetic purposes, if nothing else. But yeah, other than the sounds, obviously the way it rides is night and day compared to that. I mean, this is obviously designed to be a more sporty sort of, not quite a Thruxton, but not quite, a Bonneville either in the traditional sense. It's sort of a halfway house between the two. You can definitely feel that it's a lot sportier. With the riding position, you're slightly more leaned forward, but you're still quite upright. You're not properly leaned over. It's not like a proper sports bike or anything like that. But yeah, you can kind of, as I said, sit upright and kind of bimble around on it, and it's quite comfortable and quite happy to do that. So if you're only going to have one bike, then I mean, it's a great all-rounder, is my first impressions. Haven't done any long trips on it yet, obviously, but that will come. And then we'll see if my opinion changes. Traffic. I don't think there was a huge amount of traffic at lunchtime on a Wednesday, but here we are. Here we are. So yeah, speaking about touring, I think this could do it reasonably well for at least a little bit of time. You've got room for a top box there at least. The exhausts might get in the way of like panniers or something like that, unless you get one of the aftermarket ones that sort of relocate it to the side as a sort of a side exhaust kind of deal, rather than it sort of tipping up towards the rear seat. I think if you change that, it'd be fine, but otherwise I think if you put panniers on this, it might get in the way of the exhaust. But you've definitely got room for a top box. This one actually came with a rack for one, so someone's clearly used it for some sort of touring at some point. So I'm hoping it can do a bit of that. I will say though, I rode it for a couple of hours just yesterday evening, and it does get slightly uncomfortable after a couple of hours. Like, not necessarily just the seat. The seat is actually not too bad, I think. I thought it was going to be worse than it is. I think the stock seat's pretty good. It's more the suspension, and I think people have made comments about this already online. It's quite a common point for these, and quite a common upgrade point on these that people like to do. But the rear shocks in particular, you hit the bump stop on them pretty easily. I've discovered that they're yeah, not the best. But yeah, like I said, they do the job. They're just, I think for long-term riding, it's maybe not ideal. So they'll be getting upgraded probably at some point. Yeah, and I hear people saying about the forks as well. You start to notice them, the front forks. Once you upgrade that, you start to notice that more, and then it's one thing after another, right? It's kind of how these things go usually. But I'm not too worried about that. I think it's more the rear for me. At least that's the impression I have at the moment. But yeah, so far it's just been complaints from me, isn't it? As per usual with me. You might get to know me if you stick around. I'm always the cons first with me. But yeah, as you can hear there, as you can hear the other guy as well. But as you can hear there, the exhaust, or just the engine sound in general on these things is lovely. Really nice sounding bike. Doesn't half go as well. Once you get on the throttle, there's oodles of torque there. Sports bikes guys will be quick to point out that like 96 horsepower, or however many horsepower it has, I can't remember, 96, 97, something like that. It's not a huge amount for a 1200 engine, but it's the torque though is where it's at. It's tuned for torque, and you can tell. It's there, low in the rev range, as soon as you want it. It's it's not for setting the track on fire, it's not that kind of bike. It's for bimbling around little roads like this, which we're just coming onto. It's amazing just for short pulls like that. Like it's the torque's awesome. It's yeah, like I'm sure it'd be fine on like highways and stuff for a bit, especially if you put like a little screen on there, and you've got 6 gears, so it's not too bad. There's no cruise control, which is would you expect cruise control on a bike like this? I don't think I would personally, but like I said, 6 gears and a nice low engine note, plenty of power, low in the rev range as well. You don't have to rev it all the way up to get the power. I'm sure for highways, long distances and stuff, that it'll be quite good at that, I think. As far as the performance is concerned, I don't think that's an issue. This thing has all the performance you could want, really. Like, you don't need more than that, honestly. On the road, you just don't. It's got plenty. Way more than the Bonneville that I had. That's for sure. That was just lacking a little bit, I think. But this is, yeah. This is going to keep up with anything on modern roads, really. Any car. I mean, if you're speeding around on private roads or in Mexico, that's maybe a different affair, but plenty of power for the road, for legal speeds. You could very quickly get into quite a lot of trouble with this if you don't watch what you're doing. And not just with the law, I mean, like, scale-wise as well. If you run out of that, you run out of that before you realise you're going way beyond your limit. you could quite quickly end up in an accident, I feel like. So you kind of just have to watch a little bit, you know. It's nothing to be sniffed at. But yeah, like I said, at the same time, it's not a track bike, you know. It's not built for that. You know, like I said before about the shocks and front fork, the brakes as well are well, they're good, especially for a bike like this. You would expect the brakes to be worse, I feel like, you know, given the retro styling and all that. First impressions, just looking at it, you would think, oh, it's going to be a retro machine, subpar brakes. You know, you might even expect it not to have ABS. The Bonneville certainly didn't. The old ones, that is, the air-cooled one that I had previously, that did not have ABS or traction control or any of the modern features you get on bikes now. But this has all that. You can turn the traction control off if you want, but it's there, along with ABS and yeah, everything you need really on a modern bike. But yeah, safety features, not necessarily features that make it perform as well as a modern bike. But as I said, you don't really expect it to perform like a modern bike, right? Like that's it kind of takes your expectations and throws them in the bin a little bit looking at it, because you definitely wouldn't expect it. If you didn't know anything about this bike, you wouldn't expect it to perform the way it does as it is. So to expect it to perform like a modern sports bike, for example, would just be a bit insane. It's not built for that. So yeah, depending on what kind of rider you are, you know, if you're looking for something, you know, like a modern sports bike or even a modern naked or something, like, it's not quite that, you know. You probably want to look at even something like the Z900 RS or something if you're looking for something maybe a bit more wolf in sheep's clothing, I feel like. Very quickly it gets up to beyond legal speed limits. with the torque, you know, like I said, it's there straight away. You don't even really have to rev it out. You'll get up to speed very quickly. Where it loses its performance, as I said, is, you know, like cornering ability and stuff, if you compare it to modern sports bikes. But it's not that. Start to go over the bumps here, you know, you really start to feel the rear shock down over time. Yeah, I really like it. If you've only got one bike, which at the moment I only do have one bike, which is this one. It's a great all-rounder. It does everything really well from what I can tell so far. I mean, it's still to be seen, you know, how it's going to do long term, but at the moment I can see this being at least a long-term bike for me in terms of owning it, because yeah, I mean, what else could you want, right? Just for having a nice, it's a nice bike for the weekend, just having a nice bimble around the weekends. It's a great bike for that. And you can chill out on it, you can go fast if you want, you can go long distance if you want. It'll do it all if you let it, and that's what I really like about it. That, and on top of that, it looks cool, sounds cool. And other people certainly think it looks cool if that's the sort of thing you're into, you know, it grabs attention. I'll say that. I've only been out on it, you know, for, you know, the last 2 days, and I've already had people come up to me and ask me about it. You know, we can't believe it's as modern a bike as it is, just looking at it. You it's a 2019 bike. You wouldn't think it was that new. And this is the first generation as well. This is this is the first year that they made these. The new liquid cooled version, that is obviously Speed Twins, I know existed in the past, but since they reintroduced them, 2019 was the first year that they made them, and yeah, like they're still making them, and they've changed them a little bit over the years, including improving like the brakes and the front forks and stuff like that. But minor improvements. I think most of the changes were visual, especially with getting rid of the dual clocks there, which I haven't mentioned. The dual clocks on the 2025 and beyond version, I believe, are gone. And it's now a single TFT type of thing, which I don't really like. Like for this sort of bike, I think you need the dual clocks, honestly. I think the reasoning for it was something like having to put, you know, the screen on for like cruise control capabilities and stuff like that, you know, electronic engineering reasons basically. I don't know if there's a measure of cost cutting going on there. I don't know. Couldn't tell you, but what I can tell you is they don't look as good as the dual clocks, which is why partially why I went for one of the older ones. With the pre-2022 model as well, you've also got the old Euro 4 compliant engine, which they did make some changes to the internals of the engine, sort of post 2022, including making it Euro 5 compliant, and that makes some modifications more difficult to do, as far as like exhaust and stuff is concerned. Yeah, that and the fact they're just better value, honestly. When, you know, it's an older bike, obviously value drops, and this one at quite low miles as well. It's at 2,500 miles, and I figured, why spend the extra few grand on a slightly newer bike that isn't really any better than the old one? So, you know, if I was going to make a recommendation, from what I can tell so far, I would say get the old one. Honestly, get sort of between 2019 2022 model, around that sort of time, because you're getting a better bang for your buck, I feel like. Yeah, in summary, it's a good bike. If you're, you know, you don't need long on this bike to tell that it's a good bike. If you are interested in, you know, trying one, buying one, then I can say for certain that it's a good bike. How good a bike will depend on what kind of rider you are, but I think for most people, they'll enjoy it to some degree. That degree will vary somewhat, as I said, but I think it's hard to dislike this bike, honestly. No matter what kind of rider you are, I think this bike does something for everything. Like it will do something well for everyone, that everyone can appreciate. Does that compromise it somewhat? Does it take character away? Maybe. That's maybe debatable. But where it sort of compromises, it makes up for in other ways, in terms of, you know, talking about character, you know, that engine note and the looks and things like that. Like, that's all stuff that kind of adds back in there and kind of makes it more characterful. You know, on paper it seems like a fairly compromised bike, but once you're on one, once you're riding one, you start to understand. Even if you don't understand beforehand, you will start to understand once you've rode one why people like them so much. Yeah, that's been my first impressions, I guess, so far. I've yet to live with it long term and see how it goes. I'll probably refine my thoughts a bit more in, say, 6 months, a year from now. But if you enjoyed, stick around. There'll be some POV stuff. This channel is mostly just kind of POV drives and rides. I don't just do bikes. I have a Porsche 997 Cayman as well, which I've been having a bit of fun in. And there'll be some more of that as well, so I feel like that sort of thing stick around for that as well. But there'll definitely be a lot more of this bike coming as well. POV stuff, but if you like this sort of thing, if you like me just rambling on about my opinions and about the bike and stuff, then for sure stick around for that as well, because there'll be a little bit of that. But that's been my first impressions for now. Like I said, if you liked, then like the video of course and subscribe, stick around, and I'll see you all for the next one.